Yes.
Yeah, because everything about the forced choice is interesting. Like Lacan's worked on it, and you can see it in Hegel as well. But the idea is that like there's a choice between being, and then there's a choice between being and then being constituted within language for Lacan, like entering into the symbolic order. And he calls that the forced choice. It's the unconscious forced choice of subjectivation.
Mm-hmm. The choice that you don't make yourself, but then you are thus retroactively responsible
for. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, like, yeah, like technically you could choose to not use language and to use your own and have your own kind of invented things.
I don't think you couldn't.
No, I'm saying, well, let me finish the thought, bro.
Sorry. So you said technically. I'm like, technically.
Hey, no,
maybe
I
hypothetically.
Yeah. Okay, sure. Hypothetically.
That's so obnoxious. Sorry. So obnoxious.
Hypothetically, you could, but you could not exist like in the social order and do that.
Right. So
that's right.
Matthew Flisfader has a nice definition of it. He says, the subject then is faced with a primordial forced choice, to be or not to be. The subject is condemned to the forced choice of existence, submitting itself to the law of the symbolic order. Cogito, according to Lacan, results from a forced choice of being. Lacan contends that the subject is forced to choose between thought and being. In order to exist within the confines of the symbolic, that is, the subject is condemned to the choice of being, and thought is relegated to the unconscious. A person becomes a subject by way of this forced choice of being, which relegates thought to the place of the unconscious.
Which is why I'm imagining freedom stemming from some sort of innate individual capacity kind of completely gets it wrong. And like this version is like much more of the like revolutionary or emancipatory perception of freedom, the kind of forced choice.
Well, would you say that, rejecting the forced choice, or is it accepting the forced choice? Or
I think accepting that there is a kind of forced choice. Maybe it's in like a bit of a different conversation, but
I think that's a nice point.
The reason that came to mind is because what people object to when they have to wear a mask, for instance, is that like, oh, I'm not worried about getting COVID. I like my body, my choice type thing, right? But like that completely lies the notion that there exists a network of relations beyond yourself.
Very nice.
I just realized my fly has been down, so take everything I just said with a big grain of salt. Can't take anyone seriously with a fly.
We got it. And that's so gotta do the episode again. We gotta cut Peter's.
And the worst part is it's the jeans that he got back from his friend.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, and what boxers are you wearing underneath there?
Yeah, right? Like I'm alone in a room with a fly that's down, which really should not matter, but the down fly implies a social order beyond myself, even present within the room when I'm alone.
Yeah. Don't take me seriously. That's the best.
It's very embarrassing. You should, yeah.
The thing is, like when I looked at it, I was embarrassed, even though I'm like completely
And it's so true. Like you can be delivering like the fucking like we'll fight him in the air speech from what Churchill, but if your fly's down, man, that's it.
Exactly.
Toast.
There's nothing to fear but oh wait, my fly's down.
We'll fight them in the air. We'll fight them. Sorry, just 1 second.
Yeah, he got a piece of toilet paper stuck to his shoe and his fly down. We'll fight them in the air. We'll fight them in the water.
And then his pants fall down.
Hold on, one moment, please.
We'll defend this island at 1 second. Just a second here. Well, I think we can end it there. It's been a while.
Jake. Yeah. I sent you that quote. Maybe you want to. I think it might do the job of tying it together.
Holy, that's a quote, eh? Like, do you really think our listeners want to hear that?
That's why you're reading it.
Yeah,
the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay. The significance of these, at first sight, purely speculative ruminations for the psychoanalytic theory of ideology cannot be overestimated. What is the empty gesture, by means of which the brute, senseless reality is assumed, accepted as our own work, if not the most elementary ideological operation, the symbolization of the real, its transformation into a meaningful totality, its inscription into the big other? We can literally say that this empty gesture posits the big other, makes it exist. The purely formal conversion which constitutes this gesture is simply the conversion of the pre-symbolic real into the symbolized reality, into the real caught in the web of the signifier's network. In other words, through this empty gesture, the subject presupposes the existence of the big other. Now, perhaps we are able to locate that radical change which, according to Lacan, defines the final stage of the psychoanalytic process, subjective destitution. What is at stake in this destitution is precisely the fact that the subject no longer presupposes himself as subject by accomplishing this he annuls, so to speak, the effects of the act of formal conversion. In other words, he assumes not the existence, but the non-existence of the big other. He accepts the real in its utter, meaningless idiocy. He keeps open the gap between the real and its symbolization. The price to be paid for this is that by the same act, he also annuls himself as subject because, and this would be Hegel's last lesson, the subject is subject only insofar as he presupposes himself as absolute through the movement of double reflection. Holy
Fucking
moly.
go.
Fucking slams. So good.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't, we could cut everything and just have that, eh?
Yeah.
Like how everything comes back to traversing the old fantasy. But it's true. Like there's something really interesting about, and we mentioned, I think, Peter, you mentioned agency like right at the beginning. And it's funny how this kind of all comes back to like the subject and how language subjectivizes, and that the sort of like the weird Lacanian moment is this disillusion, right? This like fracturing, this unmooredness of realizing that one's own agency and subject is kind of constituted by this sort of unfreedom, this non-choice, but that accepting that and then sort of reconstituting the very unmooredness is like, it's bizarre, right? Like that the subject is this radical nothing that only is filled out by its willingness to kind of play the game.